Welcome back to Mastering Menopause. On my last episode, I promised that I was going to get into talking about GLP-1s, which this is not a bash on GLP-1s by any means. They definitely have their place, but I also see them being misused. So the reason why we have GLP-1s is for the management of diabetes, and then we found that it had great efficacy in weight loss. And so for people that are obese, it was shown to have huge benefits. And then it started to become mainstream. I follow the aggressive dieting protocol from McDonald, and he did a podcast. So I am going to reference his podcast that he did and a study that he is referencing, and I will link his podcast below and then also talk about like his breakdown on this study. So this is not my area of expertise by any means, but it is showing that GLP-1s versus aggressive dieting, that aggressive dieting actually beat GLP-1s for fat loss and weight loss. And this was actually very surprising, right? And not just slightly, but more than double. So the research actually shows this. There was a comparison. This came from a study to compare GLP-1 medications against an aggressive diet protocol. This was in people with type 2 diabetes. This was conducted at the University of Nottingham, and McDonald's podcast is called Not Another Nutrition Podcast. And in this study, it was more than double showing that aggressive dieting beat GLP-1s. The study was over 12 weeks. There was an aggressive diet group, and then there was the GLP-1 group, and they used semaglutide. And in the aggressive diet group, they had a 29-pound weight loss, which was double to the weight loss compared to the GLP-1s, that was only 13 pounds. So that was less fat loss despite the appetite suppression of a GLP-1. And so I think this was actually surprising. This surprised a lot of people. The surprising part, there was another aspect of this study where they combined the people that were doing GLP-1s with an aggressive diet or vice versa. And then they showed that it just didn't give any added benefit. So the ones that were doing an aggressive diet that added GLP-1s, they still just got the regular results that they were going to get, which was that 29 pounds in 12 weeks. And so this is pretty significant, showing a GLP-1 only, aggressive diet only, and then the combination. So it didn't show that there was more weight loss, fat loss, or that they lost more inches. There wasn't better adherence. It wasn't better fat loss. It wasn't better body composition. And that this is pretty significant. The study shows that aggressive dieting did not require more willpower. And that's, I think, a common narrative that an aggressive diet is going to fail because they require too much willpower. And I think that is why the GLP-1s are so popular, is because it just suppresses the appetite. But here's the thing. There were 0 dropouts in the aggressive diet group. There were dropouts in the GLP-1 group. And that's just because they couldn't deal with the side effects. This just highlights that when you do an aggressive approach correctly, with structured, intentional, and a time limit on it, right? This isn't chaotic or white knuckle dieting. I think people assume that this is like a crash diet and you're going to crash your metabolism, and that's not what's going on. I think with GLP-1s, we automatically assume that we're going to create a caloric restriction, right? So I was actually surprised by this, that with a GLP-1, your intake is reduced by 20 to 45%. With aggressive dieting, we have an intentional reduction of anywhere from 60 to 70%. And so the difference between that is the GLP-1, it's just suppressing the appetite, right? So subconscious, and it's inconsistent. Like some days you're hungry, some days you're not. I think that the biggest thing is you just don't have the appetite, or you have nausea, right? And you just don't feel like eating. So you're going to have different levels those days, right? When you first get the shot, I don't know, but when you first get it, right, you start to have that nausea. With an aggressive diet, you don't have that. It is very much a deliberate phase. It's planned and is very protein protein driven. And that's the distinction that actually is going to matter for results and maximum muscle retention. And so the biggest thing is, and this has always been like my hypothesis, is that people just aren't getting in their protein when they're eating GLP-1s. And that would be one thing that you would absolutely want to focus on. This is what I focus on when I'm using a rapid fat loss protocol or an aggressive diet, is we want to make sure that protein is solved for. But the GLP-1 group, they ate less protein and they reported more nausea. So they had more trouble prioritizing those nutrient-dense foods. So this actually explains why muscle loss is a concern and why it shows up with those GLP-1s. It's not because the drug eats your muscle, right? It's just because people are struggling to eat enough protein while nauseated. And I don't think that people are trying to, for the most part, that they're trying to intentionally eat the protein, right? So I know that people that are getting coached probably are being made aware that, hey, you're going to need to keep your protein intake up. But I think we're just using it as like a blanket like fix for a problem that is very prevalent right now, which is obesity, but it's very mainstream right now for somebody who just has 15 pounds to lose or 20 pounds to lose or even 10 pounds to lose, and they're taking this way when you're going to have a lot of side effects from these, right? Not only just the nausea, the gastric distress, but there's also insomnia. There is there's actual hair loss, and then there are definitely some like more major things that can happen to your health with gallbladder issues. And I think the side effects, almost 40 to 50% of the GLP users experience that nausea. Aggressive dieting, there's fewer adverse effects to that. This is not for everybody. It's not just a blanket thing that everybody can do. But I just want to highlight, it doesn't mean that GLP-1s are bad. It just highlights the fact that aggressive dieting is going to be far more viable than people realize. The reason why GLPs came out is for diabetes, right? And that is the main purpose, and that is where GLPs shine. It's not in the fat loss dominance area. In this study, it was showing better insulin response and stronger diabetes management support. And that's what it was designed for. But if you're looking for pure fat loss and inches gone and momentum, then aggressive dieting clearly is outperforming these GLP-1s. So again, when I look at GLP-1s, I think here's the one thing that I have a complaint with as far as taking GLP-1s. If you are somebody who already doesn't have hunger cues, if you're already significantly under eating or have just been in a diet, like not even significantly under eating, which I actually find a lot of my clients are when they first come to me, right? They're eating 12 to 1,300 calories and their maintenance is 2,000 and they've been doing this for years. A GLP-1 is not going to save you. It is not going to work. Because with a GLP-1, just a 20 to 45% reduction in calories, you're already there, baby. So it's not going to work. And so that is one thing that's going to highlight. And I think the benefit is for people that are just overeating, that have the food noise, that this can definitely be a highlight. However, you can use an aggressive diet to suppress those hunger cues and to eliminate the food noise without the side effects that you're going to get, and pretty significant side effects from a GLP-1. When done correctly, aggressive dieting is going to remove that food noise, is going to create faster wins. You are in a steeper deficit. You are going to get faster weight loss. It's going to help improve compliance, and it's going to build your confidence, right? Instead of dragging this out for months. And so, like, when my client that I talked about, right, she lost 11 pounds and 20 inches in 21 days. This isn't an outlier, right? This was a predictable outcome. And that strategy just matched the physiology. So for so many reasons, like, I love the fact that this study came out. I'm not anti-GLP-1, but I think that this highlights that there is another approach that you can take that is going to be safer. People think that aggressive dieting is a crash diet, that we're starving, that it's just random restriction, that maybe we're going to do excessive cardio. It's not that at all. Aggressive dieting is very much time bound, right? There is a very clear plan of how long we're going to stay in it. Now, when I talked about Jerry was actually not in an aggressive diet. She did more of a modified approach to this. So she used my rapid fat loss protocol that I use, which is aggressive, but is not as aggressive as I have done with my clients that have more weight to lose. And so it is very structured. We will set this up. It is not recommended that you would go beyond 5 weeks at one time to do this. So you have to do refeeds. When I did this to get photo shoot ready, because and this isn't a flex, right? But because I was relatively lean, and that being like at 26% body fat, using Martin McDonald's calculator, it predicted that what my fat loss was going to be, and then when I would have to take refeeds. And because I was on the lean side, right, I don't consider 26% to be lean. How the calculator works, it is based on your metrics, your height, your weight, your age, all the steps that you're getting in, your activity, how much sleep you're getting, and then your body fat percentage. And so I was getting, because I used the most aggressive approach, there's 4 stages. There's the slower one, and then the fastest. And I'm like, if I'm going to be doing this, let me just do it the fastest way. I'm never going to be more motivated than I am at the beginning. So let's try it, right? And so my refeeds were every 12 days. When I have people that have a little bit more significant weight to lose or have a higher body fat percentage, then we can see them being pushed out at 30 days, 40 days. Martin, when I went to his seminar, he's like, you don't want to push it past 5 weeks. Now, I did have a client who, she was so close to goal, she pushed it out to 6 weeks. And I was like, and she was like, I just want to try. I'm so close. And she said it was really hard for that last bit. But again, it's very much protein forward. It is very purposeful. This has to be done on a timeline, right? It is mapped out, and it does remove that food noise. And so here's another thing too, is aggressive dieting works because it removes that decision fatigue, right? Your day is planned out, and then this is just what you eat. Like when I did this, I was not thinking about eating. I was like, oh, you know what? It would probably be a good time to eat. So when you make the shift, then it's like, all right, these are the meals, and this is okay. This is just what I'm going to eat. It's not like I didn't forget to eat or anything like that. I just wasn't driven to eat. And so it's definitely, that is a highlight because, again, removing the what am I going to eat? You're not negotiating with yourself all day. And so that's why we find compliance is higher with this approach than it is with the moderate deficits that I was talking about last week. GLP-1s, they're not magic. They are definitely a major medical advancement. They do help appetite regulation, diabetes management, but it has been shown that the aggressive dieting reduces calories more because GLP-1s typically reduce the calories by 20 to 40%. And then so many users undereat protein because of the nausea, and then most of the users are reporting nausea. And so muscle loss is very important to consider. We do not want to be losing muscle at our age. For women that are over 50, right, 45 and beyond, you're already losing muscle if you're not working on it, but it is so important to make sure that we're maintaining that. And so what this means is for women that are in midlife, we're just stuck in this limbo. I love Martin's approach because it involved a big feed up first, right, before we actually even do this approach. So we have to do like a carb load before you would even take like an aggressive approach. And because it's so structured, there is a clear end in sight. And so this is going to prevent that burnout. When you look at the highlights, like aggressive dieting would be best for women that have just tried everything. They're just fed up with it. They're ready for some structure. They're willing to plan. They want some momentum. GLP-1s are going to be better for specific medical cases, right? For people that have appetite dysregulation, for longer term metabolic support. An aggressive dieting phase is very much a strategy. So I will find that study that he was talking about, and then I will link his podcast. He's very dry, he's very sarcastic, and he tends to wander off topic a little bit. So do I. But I will drop that off because he is brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant, and he is the one that built the calculator. He is the one that built the blueprint that I've been following to get my clients just amazing results. So if you have any questions, as usual, please let me know. I'm recording this before Christmas, but this is dropping after Christmas. So I hope that you had an amazing Christmas, and now we're moving into the new year. So happy new year. Also, this is one other thing I wanted to touch on, that you might be considering a GLP-1. Maybe you're seeing like your coworkers having these amazing results. Maybe your neighbor down the street, you're like, wow, she looks fantastic. I think one thing to consider is like all the side effects that people are having. Here's one that I've been hearing a lot, is that it removes it removes that urge for food, but it also removes your taste and enjoyment for food. And so this has come up from chefs, which was interesting because they just don't have a taste for food anymore. I'm like, dang, it took them a lot to get that taste and that enjoyment for food back. That's pretty powerful. And so if you're messing around with that, like I absolutely say, if you're obese and you have 50 or more pounds to lose and you need help with a GLP-1, then yeah, do it. And let's blend it with an aggressive diet and make sure that we're getting in the protein. But for somebody that has less, like 30 pounds, 40 pounds to lose or less, I don't think that is the approach that I would take, because there's just so many side effects that come with it. Hair loss is huge. And this is rampant, like apparently to my hairdresser, like a little bit of gossip, but I know who's taking the drugs. You can just tell because their hair is thin, right? It's thinning and it's coming out like it's all in her sink. But the scariest thing that I'm noticing is that there is no new regrowth. Right? That is scary. So not only are you losing your hair, but you're not getting new regrowth. I will say, and maybe you haven't listened to my episode where I talked about my experience using an aggressive diet. I had a huge growth spurt for my hair. I had all of these baby hairs that was just driving me crazy because so I did this for 8 weeks and I just started to notice like I had all these little sprouts coming up, which was all this new growth. And my hairdresser was just like, what the heck's going on? I had this mushroom head because I had so much of this new growth coming all in. So again, the way I look at it is very much, it is a health phase. And so I'm just going to wrap this up, throw those in there, rando. All right. So happy new year to you. If you're considering taking a GLP-1, that's where I was going with this, right? Because you're seeing the amazing results. Consider, and like maybe you don't want to, I'm going to go there, but what are these people going to look like naked if they're not prioritizing protein and they're just losing muscle? Then what is that going to look like as they lose the weight, right? Yeah, sure, they're like this skinny version of themselves, but they don't have any muscle tone. They don't have any definition. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that, right? Ariana Grande and Kelly Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne, they're Jessica Simpson. They're just like these walking like Skeletors, which I know that's mean and judgmental, but holy crap. Like this whole, is skinny in? I would hope that for us ladies that were born in the 60s, right? I was born in 67, that are in their 50s, that were like, what? Been there, done that. Is that the look that we want? I would hope that it's probably not the look that we're going for. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Let me know. Why don't you tell me, right? Do you like that really skinny look, that skin and bones look? Or do you want like just to have less fat on your body and not have that lumpy bumpy stuff on your body, and just reduce that with some nice tone and definition? Like, I get we probably want like a smaller stomach, right? A flat stomach and maybe some nice shoulders and a lifted booty, right? Yes, all day, let's do it. But being able to see like your neck, and then just this angular line with your like sunken in cheeks, is that what we're going for? Like, I hope not, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I think with the surge of these drugs, and it's so readily available, that people are willing to do anything to lose weight. And I'm just saying, there's another option. There's absolutely another option. All right, that's it. All right, thank you. If you know somebody that would benefit from this information, then please share it with them. And if you found this episode share worthy, then please tag me and share away. I would love that. All right, Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.